Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 205, yet I can't believe we've ever made it this far, of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people are making and use them to talk about some of the wonderful biodiversity that we share our world with. So today you can see we've got quite an interesting assortment of animals. I mean, we normally do, but we've got a lot of extinct animals today. We've got some other subspecies and other groups and things, so I'm quite excited to see what we get stuck into. Very eclectic assortment today, but anyway, we're going to be starting off with a really cool exhibit animal. We've got here, this is the by Tosco DS. We have got the California Black Sea Hare. So let's have a look at these guys here, sitting in the rocks there. I want to find one that's in clear view for us to look at. He's probably good enough, so that's a cool one. So this is Alphisa vacaria, and also known as the Black Sea Hare or the California Black Sea Hare. You can see how big they are. So they are a species of extremely large sea slug. They're a marine Osmobrach gastropod mollusk, so that's fancy with saying they're a giant sea slug. In the family Acebicidae, and they are the largest species of sea slug that you can find. So that's kind of their claim to fame. So this Californian Black Sea Hare is, as you could guess, lives in the northeast Pacific Ocean off California and the Baja California, Mexico, including the Gulf of California, so kind of that range there. And they can grow very, very large. So the longest recorded specimen is about 99 centimeters, or about 39 inches long, when crawling, thus fully extended, and weighed about 14 kilograms, or about 31 pounds. And unlike a related species, the body of the species is firm, and they have a parapoda that is joined behind the siphon, which is interesting. And unlike many other members of the same family genus, these guys are incapable of producing ink. In terms of their feeding habits, they are herbivores, so they eat brown seaweeds and kelp, which gives the animal their dark coloration. And these guys typically have a lifespan of about 1 year, where they grow to about 4.9 grams a day, so very quick growth, and allows them to become the largest species of sea slug. And it's a herbivore, with this guy eating brown algae, while the other species of California feasts on red algae. And the differences in these food sources minimizes the competition between the two species in their habitat. And Vacaria is typically found in intertidal and upper subtidal zones, meaning they can actually survive exposure to air when the tide is out, and is really preyed upon by other species, which has made it the subject of various experiments testing for a secreted biotoxin that discourages predation. And the large size of it also contributes to not having many predators, because it's quite a mouthful, you know. It's simply for most predators, too big for most predators to consume. Very similar to other species of sea slugs and slugs in general as well, they are simultaneous hermaphrodites, so they have both male and female sex organs and able to contribute to sexual reproduction at the same time, which is different from non-stimulus or sequential hermaphrodites who usually have one at a time. So it's something like a fish, sometimes they'll grow from a female into a male, for example. These guys have them both organs at the same time. And they have great advantage because any two individuals is able to reproduce with one another, that facilitates them finding mates. And despite having both sex organs functional, only one can act as a sperm donor during a mate encounter, which is determined by the relative size of the two individuals, with typically the smaller one being the sperm donor and the larger one being the recipient. And because of a reproductive role of the species is dependent on its sizes of mating pair, one individual can act as both a sperm donor and a sperm recipient during a mating season, with other individuals are suggested to be preferentially selected for mating. It's probably because of the larger size. And this acts as a sperm recipient to avoid competition present between small individuals to be sperm donors, which is interesting as well. And its kind of mating strategy is not too dissimilar to other species of gastropods. It's interesting as well. So we don't know one of the reasons. We know that the scarcity of the natural predators of sea hares has actually been suggested to be because they make some kind of toxin. Because unlike other members of their group, they cannot produce ink, and the absence of this defense mechanism while maintaining a very low level of predation is further suggests that it is protected by a secreted toxin, effective enough that the production of ink was considered, not worth it. Um, Sea hares form their toxins from compounds they receive in their foods, and this is significant because the type of algae that sea hare eats is determined the toxin it produces. So, Becaria feeds primarily on brown algae, as we mentioned. Californica feeds on red algae, and food sources also determine the color of the sea hare. This is why Becaria is black or dark brown, while California appears red. And to discourage predation by fish, brown algae produces the toxin acetoxycerolide. I'm not sure you said that, but that's my best guess. And during digestion, they extract this compound and accumulate it into their tissues. And because it's highly toxic to fish, it's a quite great way to get rid of predation risk, because eating them is toxic, because they're literally really toxic, so you don't want to eat them. But yeah, really, really cool species. Really love seeing these guys. Here's one on a rock being all cute. Cool species we get to talk about. Another one by Tosco. Definitely a big fan. Alright, so next up we have got by Kanu, who's making an India pack, which I'm quite excited to get through. We've got here the Indian giant squirrel, not ground squirrel. So here's the Indian giant squirrel. So these guys, also known as the Malabar giant squirrel, is a large multicolored tree squirrel endemic to the forests and woodlands of India. It is also diurnal, arboreal, and mainly herbivorous. So this species is endemic or only found in India, with a distribution from the Western Ghats, Eastern Ghats, and the Sapura Range as far north as Madhya Pradesh, and it's typically found between 180 to 2,300 meters above sea level in tropical, deciduous, semi-deciduous, and moist evergreen forest and woodlands. And in general, its distribution is fragmented due to habitat fragmentation, which they're not really good at dealing with. And they generally nest in trees taller than a height of 11 meters, and typically do that to avoid predators. So they are, as I mentioned, one of the largest squirrels, hence the word giant in their name. Don't know what's happening with that tail there, but we'll sort it out later. Let's have a look at another one. There's got to be another one around here somewhere. Having a sleep. They have a head to body length of about 25 to 50 centimeters, or about 10 inches to 1 foot 8 inches. And the tail is about the same, or somewhat longer in length, and they can weigh between 1.5 to 2 kilograms, or 3.3 to 4.4 pounds, or really up to 6.6 pounds, or 3 kilos, with averages in both sexes being about 36 centimeters in head to body length, 45 centimeters, or 1 foot 6 in tail length, and about 1.7 to 1.8 kilograms on average. So they have a conspicuous, you can see, 1, 2, or 3 toned color scheme, and the color includes whitish, creamish beige, buff, tan, rust, reddish maroon, brown, dark seal brown, or black. And the underparts in their front legs are usually cream colored, as you can kind of see there. And their heads can be brown or beige, as you kind of see there, with a distinctive white spot behind their ears. You kind of see there, between the ears, I think. And there is different subspecies that are defined by color, but I'm not sure how actually true they are in terms of like how they're actually genetically related to each other. But in terms of this kind of one, I think it looks to be indica, so it's the dominant subspecies. These guys are having a bit of a tussle. A really, really nice mod. I'm actually quite liking this one. In terms of its behavior, it is an upper canopy dwelling species which rarely leaves the trees and requires tall, profusely branching trees in the construction of nests. And they will travel from tree to tree and jump up to 6 meters or 20 feet. And when in danger, they tend to often freeze or flatten itself against a tree trunk instead of fleeing. Main predators of this species tends to be owls, other birds of prey, and leopards, with these guys being mostly active during the early hours of the morning and in the evening, resting during the midday. Now, typically solitary and only come together to breed, and they're also believed to play a substantial role in shaping the ecosystem by being seed dispersers, like many other cool species of animal that we've talked about here. So they spread the seeds through of different fruits that they eat through their gut, and poop them out certain places. So that really helps with shaping the forest, and it's cool. There's a lot of species that do it. It's a great circular life kind of thing. Their diet itself includes fruits, flowers, nuts, and tree bark, but they may also eat bird eggs and insects. In terms of their family life, They live alone and in pairs, and their nests are quite large and globular, and they typically mate them from twigs and leaves, places them on thinner branches where large predators can't get to them. And these nests become conspicuous in deciduous forests during the dry season, and an individual may actually build several nests in a small area of forest, then use their sleeping quarters, with one being used as a nursery. So that's quite interesting as well. And we'll have a look at the cute little babies, we got to have a look at the cute little babies. Very, very cute. So the Indian giant squirrel lives, we already mentioned that. Captive breeding of the Malayan giant squirrel, which is a close relative, indicates births in March, April, September, and December, with the young weighing about 74 grams and have a length of about 27.3 centimeters. So that's probably quite similar for the giant Indian giant squirrel, though maybe a little bit different because they're different species, of course. And in terms of their recognition, they are actually recognized as the state animal of the state of Maharashtra in Western India. So yeah, another cool species that gets some good recognition. But yeah, really big fan. So next up, we've got some mods by Sky Polaris. I can't know who did this one. Sky Polaris did a really interesting mod. Seemed to be doing a lot of subspecies and things. So we've got here the Javan leopard. So it's a really cool one. So this is a leopard subspecies. This is Panthera pandus melas. I'm not sure actually if they are considered a subspecies these days. There is a lot of taxonomy changes in these guys, but they're at least considered a quite distinct population. They are confined to the in the island of Java. I guess you'd get from the name Javan leopard. And they are listed as endangered since 2021, with the population estimate being 188 to 571 mature individuals and 22 subpopulations that are fragmented and seem to be declining, which is a little bit sad. So they are typically, was initially described as a black panther with dark brown eyes or silver greys, or they either have a normal spotted pattern, or you can see the female over there, she has got a melanistic coat. So that actually seems to be probably a little bit more common in Javan leopards, so you're more likely to find melanistic individuals or black leopards or black panthers in Javan ones, maybe because of inbreeding and things like that, maybe because it's recessive gene that typically comes out in more inbred populations or less genetically varied populations. That probably explains it. It actually is a really nice mod. Definitely a big fan of it. So in terms of as evolution, so these guys are distinct from other Javan, leopard subspecies in Asia, and a distinct taxon that split around the Middle Pleistocene about 800,000 years ago. And in the Middle Pleistocene, it may have migrated to Java from South Asia across a land bridge that's bypassed Borneo and Sumatra. So may have become, the big Sundaland, which kind of was a thing during the Ice Age when they receded. That became like a big open area. So these guys are confined to the island of Java and are found in quite a few national parks. They inhabit elevations from sea level to about 2,500 meters, and they typically range from dense tropical rainforests to dry deciduous forests. And outside protected areas, they can be found in secondary forest, agricultural land, and productive forest, which is interesting as well. In the late 1990s, they survived the Sergal stages of successional vegetation patterns, which made it less susceptible to human destructive activities. And there had been some monitoring on them, so several leopards were actually monitored to see their home range. And the total population in this area, the Gunung Halaman National Park, was about 42 to 58 individuals, and the average home range for an adult female was about 9.82 square kilometers, or about 3.7 square miles. So in terms of its ecology, the Javan leopard's prey consists of barking deer, wild boar, Javan mouse deer, and primates, just the crab-eating macaque, silver lutang, and the Javan gibbon. And they also look for food close by villages, and they've been known to prey on domestic dogs, chickens, and goats. So that's a bit of a worry there. And their two leopards were actually radio-collared to see their times of activity, and their attention or their activity peaked between 6 and 9 o'clock in the morning and 15 to 18 o'clock in the afternoon. So, tend to be quite late, 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. In terms of threats, they face a lot of threats a lot of Javan animals face, like the Javan rhinoceros. They're threatened by loss of habitat, prey-based depletion, and poaching due to human encroachment and human population growth and expansion of agriculture. With conflicts of local people and leopards being considered a main threat, with Java losing about 90% of its vegetation and actually become one of the most densely populated islands on the earth. So it's a really big issue there. We'll have a look at the female for a bit, because we want to have a look at the female because she looks beautiful with a black panther. Let's look at her there. Beautiful, beautiful. So primary regions, they typically only live in mountainous regions at the moment. And yes, this is a really nice mod. Definitely a big fan of it. So in terms of conservation, efforts have been made to protect their population, with hunting laws strictly enforced, and the Gunung Halang National Park was actually enlarged by three times its size to protect species like the Javan leopard, the silvery gibbon, and the Javan hawk eagle. And there are a few different ones in captivity. There's about 14 kept in European zoos. As of Indonesia, they keep 17, and some places like that. There's a few in America and Germany. So there's some spread around the place, but not very common in captivity. They're really, really cool. And we got to have a look at the cute little babies. Look at the cute little babies. Look at the cat. Very, very cute. So that's the cute ones. So now we've got Sky Polaris, who's done another animal, but it's an extinct one. Here we have got the Natodrome lion. I believe how you say that. So let's see if we can find the male. There he is. So this is a very interesting animal. It's not a species, it's a specimen. So this is a type of lion, with the Felidae and all that stuff. It's dated, it was found in East Africa, and it's dated to the Pleistocene, between 195 to 205,000 years ago. And this was thought based on a skull, and it's a partial skull. It comes from northwestern Kenya. And the Natodrome sites are correlated with member 1 of the Kabish Formation, which is dated, as I mentioned, about 195 to 205,000 years ago. And what makes the skull remarkable is its giant size. So this was a lion that was quite a similar size to the largest cave or fossil cave lions, like Fossilaris and Panthera splaya of Pleistocene Europe, and much larger than any known lion from Africa, living or fossil. And there have been some hypotheses of what this lion was. It's thought to represent a potentially unknown population or subspecies of lion from the middle to late Pleistocene of Eastern Africa that may have been brought upon by climate-driven size increases of lions of the time, and raises a lot of questions between the pattern and cause of lion evolution. There's also some hypothesis that it is just a specimen of Panthera leo fossilaris, or no, Panthera fossilaris, the fossil lion, that migrated back into Africa, or just a population that just stayed in Africa, because Fossilaris migrated out of Africa about 2 million years ago, and then potentially the population may have migrated back into Africa for whatever reason, or may have just stayed in Africa. It's hard to tell with genetics. It's only a partial skull as well, so it's very, very interesting. Might have a look and see what's on the UI, even though I have the older version of this mod that looks like it's baked, but it is fixed. So let's see, 10 to 20% larger, Lake Turkana, famous early human fossils, adapted for slightly cool and dry Ice Age climate, that's true. Scientists believe that these prehistoric lions may have used large prides or coalitions to hunt ancient buffalo and even young mammoths, not sure about that. While the Natodrome lion is longest things, important link to evolutionary history. We don't know too much about it. Yeah, but it's still cool though. A giant African lion, because we have Fossilaris. It could be, just Fossilaris, African Fossilaris, or, we don't know exactly. We only have a partial skull, so it's very interesting to see what we can find more of in the future. Be a really, really cool animal. Cool mod too, so another Sky Polaris mod. So next few mods are all going to be done by Great Cakes. We do love Great Cakes, and a couple extinct species today. So here we've got another giant prehistoric mustelid. We've gone through quite a few of those, even just recently. So this one is Plesiogulo. So Plesiogulo is a species of prehistoric carnivore that has lived during the Miocene to Pliocene in Africa, Eurasia, and North America, and is believed to have an ancient relationship to the wolverine, but it's actually thought to be not closely related to them. However, some authorities can still consider it a member of Golonidae, which includes, wolverines and relatives. And there's quite a few different species. I believe this species is supposed to be Marshalli. So let's see if we can actually have a look and get a look. The oldest known juvenile specimen, lower formation, migrated to New World, tested open plains. Let's see. Remains of seldom abundant, only a handful of locations with individuals represented. Fossil sites, foot morphology, and behavior does not support the restriction of Plesiogulo to a woodland habitat. The fossil record indicates that Plesiogulo is more abundant in localities interpreted as open plains or very limited woodlands. So you can see they're probably better adapted for running around the open plains, more cursorial, as we like to say, compared to modern wolverine species. Probably helped driven their large size. An ancestral relation to the wolverine was unsuggested, but no longer considered likely. Vast individual territories seemed a reasonable explanation for the geographical widespread but poorly represented species of Plesiogulo in North America. However, the related species Crassa, so this is the North American one, appears to have attained a much higher population densities. And the fossil record indicates the mustelids appeared in late Oligocene about 33 million years ago to Eurasia and migrated to every continent except for Australia and Antarctica. All these continents were still connected since the early Miocene and reached Americas during the Bering Land Bridge. So yeah, this is Marshalli. So this is the American species. It looks really, really cool. Let it run around. So you can see it looks more like a bear to me than a typical mustelid, but that's probably part of its evolution. You can see it's got long legs adapted for running around. And may have actually been part of the bear gap, and not the bear gap, the cat gap. So it may have been one of those larger predators like Mectolithus. And there's lots of large cursorial mustelids that have been found, like Eomalivora and Megalistus, and a couple of ones, and most of them I've actually talked about on here. So this is just another one in a long line. But yeah, really, really cool. Another cool extinct species, another cool interpretation. Even though you're just walking through the bush there. Now look at the cute little baby. Really cute little baby. Be another really cool extinct species of mustelid. It's really cool we're getting all these different varieties and things like that, and they're all reconstructed differently. I'm definitely a big fan. So next up, we've got another one by Great Cakes Mod. We're going back to the Jurassic with this one. Very, very interesting animal. It's not even quite a mammal yet. This is Castrocordia. Castrocordia, I believe you say that. So very, very interesting animals. So it's an extinct semi-aquatic, superficially otter-like genus of Docodont mammalliform. So it's not a mammal, but it's gone its way to being a mammal. With one species, Castrocordia lutrasimilis, and was part of the Yeleno biota in the Dashu beds of Inner Mongolia in China, dating back to the Middle to Late Jurassic. It was part of a very big expansive of Middle Jurassic radiation of mammalliforms, and they occupied a lot of really awesome niches and things like that, including, semi-aquatic habitats like these guys. And it was discovered in 2006 and kind of was really important in our understanding of Mesozoic mammals and mammalliforms, realizing that they weren't just all tiny little shrews and rats hiding in the shadow of the dinosaurs. Even back then, they were still quite diverse, and even more discoveries since then has realized that we've had these mammals still reached a very interesting level of diversity during the Mesozoic. Now, still getting quite big, getting, 15 kilos plus, or becoming all these different niches, like, Rhodopatogmys being more like a badger or more of an ape, a larger predator, not just all tiny rats and shrew-like animals. And this is a great example. These guys would have been semi-aquatic, very much like a platypus or a beaver, hence its name. So a great example of, the diversity of mammalliforms and mammals during the Mesozoic, because I think that's really an underrated time in Earth's history for mammals, because we always get shadowed with dinosaurs, but the mammals were quite diverse too. But enough rambling. Weighing about 500 to 800 grams, or about 1.1 to 1.8 pounds. These are the largest known Jurassic mammalliform, and the earliest known mammalliform with aquatic adaptations or a fur pelt. And it was adapted for digging, and its teeth are actually similar to those of seals and Eocene whales. collectively suggesting it behaved quite similar to the modern-day platypus and river otters and ate primarily fish, and it would have lived in a wet, seasonal, cool, temperate habitat, which had an average temperature not excluding 15 degrees, and lived alongside salamanders, pterosaurs, bird-like dinosaurs, and other mammaliforms, so quite a rich diversity there. So the holotype itself was discovered in the Dohonum beds in the Jugulosser Formation about 159 to 164 million years ago in the Middle Late Jurassic. And its specimen itself comprised of a partial skull, including incomplete skull, partial skeleton with an incomplete skull but well-preserved lower jaws, most of the ribs, the limbs, same for the right hind limb, the pelvis, and the tail. And the remains are so well preserved, it had soft tissue and hair preserved, so it's quite interesting there. The genus name Castorcordia derives from castor, which is Latin for beaver, and corda means tail, in reference to its beaver-like tail. And Lutra similis is otter. Lutra is the genus name for a lot of otter species, and similis is similar. So it's basically beaver tail otter similar, or because it has some aspects of its teeth and tail, which are teeth and vertebrae, are similar to modern otters. So it's beaver tail otter-like is its full scientific name in English. So as I mentioned, it was the largest known docodont, preserved head to tail length of 425 millimeters, or about 16 inches, but in life it was much larger. Based on platypus dimensions, its lower weight would have been about 518 grams, or just over a pound, and would have been about 700 to 800 grams, or 1.5 to 1.8 pounds in life, making it the largest known Jurassic mammaliform, which surpassed the previous record of the 500-gram Synoconodon. So it had quite specialized teeth that were adapted for hunting fish, as mentioned, seen similar in seals or ancient whales. The first two molars had cusps that are straight roll and interlock during biting, and this feature seemed to be ancestral to mammaliforms, but a derived character in Castorcordia, so it's rapidly evolved in Castorcordia to, live with the same thing. That's a great example of convergence. The forelimbs were very similar to the modern beaver, with the humerus widening towards the elbow, and the radius ulna being widely separated. So limbs very similar to platypus, and had quite likely good at burrowing and a sprawling gait, and would have used arms similar to a platypus. And also there are traces of soft tissue between the toes that showed it had webbed hind feet. It also likely had claws, and actually the holotype has a spur on the hind ankle, so very similar to platypus. They potentially would have had a spur that was venomous, to defend themselves. So a lot of comparisons between platypus. And in terms of its, it likely had about 14 thoracic vertebrae, 7 lumbar vertebrae, 3 sacral and 25 tail vertebrae. And like some mammals, they had plated ribs and extended up to the lunar vertebrae. And they seem to have plated ribs, which are present in both arboreal and fossorial xenarthran, so things like sloths, anteaters, and armadillos. So not similar in that respect. Their tail vertebrae is also flattened dorsoventrally, and each centron has 2 pairs of transverse processes. So, as I mentioned, it's very similar to beavers and otters. So, it would have had big flat tails like an otter. So, a lot of similarities there. And fur, as I mentioned, also preserved in the holotype, and is the earliest known pelt. And it showed that fur had many uses, including heat retention and as a tactile sense. It is also ancestral to mammals, so mammals didn't. All these mammaliforms are not mammals yet; they're outside of crown mammals. So it shows that all mammals inherited fur. And mammals preserved with fur from the Chinese Yixian Formation show little hair on the tail, but the fur outline preserved in Castorcordia was about 50% wider than the pelvis. And the first quarter covered by guard heads, and the middle half by scales, and there was little hair cover on the last quarter, unless some guard hairs, which you can see represented here. But beavers having quite a similar tail. And the evidence of the fur and associated heightened tactile senses suggested by the well-developed neocortex, which is a brain portion that is unique to mammals, which is, among other things, controls sensory perception. So been quite important in that regard. And Castorcordia is a member of the order Dodecadont, which is an extinct group of mammaliforms. And the mammaliforms include all mammal-like creatures and crown mammals, so all living mammals are descended from these guys, but these guys are not crown mammals. So they're kind of another group outside of mammals, but they're on their way to becoming mammals. And they were part of a big diversification event in the Middle Jurassic, where mammaliforms managed to evolve into a variety of different niches. and evolving many traits such as more modern mammalian teeth and middle ear bones. And it was previously thought that a lot of mammals and mammalia forms were ground-dwelling and small until the Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary, or the KPG, where they all went extinct and then we all become the mammals that we know and love. But the discovery of Castrocordia actually shows that it was quite a big diversification and a lot of diverse niches taken by mammals during this time. You could argue they were pretty much just as diverse as today, because you think of whales and ungulates and things like that, and all those big animals, there's only a few hundred species. Most of the species diversity is now in bats and shrews and rodents, so these guys probably would still be quite diverse, and mammals would have been quite diverse during the Mesozoic, which is quite cool. But in terms of paleoecology, as I mentioned, it's the earliest known aquatic mammaliform, which pushed back to the first appearance of mammaliform adaptations for living aquatic life by over 100 million years. So they had teeth interlocking while biting, which is with gripping, and also recurved molars to help with slippery prey. And based on these and its adaptations for swimming and digging, it seemed to have been comparable to modern-day platypus, river otters, and other semi-aquatic mammals, and would have been a fish eater. The Daosho beds, though, have housed several salamanders, numerous pterosaurs, several insects, the clam shrimp, Eotheria, and some bird-like dinosaurs. No fish are known specifically, but some other related things just as well. There's also a lot of mammals that come from this formation, including the flying squirrel Volathetherium, the burrowing Pseudotribus, the oldest Eutherian Jeremiah, the rat-like Melogonus, and the gliding Abora And the plant life is lots of cycads, ferns, and ginkgos, and gymnosperms, and they had quite a cool with wet and distinct dry seasons as well. So yeah, very, very cool. Another cool species. I love talking about these Mesozoic weirdos. We've already had Adalatherium. Would love to see more of these guys come up. So yeah, really, really cool. Definitely a big fan. So yeah, let you have a swim around. Very, very cool. Anyway, so we're going to be finishing off with a modern animal, again done by Great Cakes. We have got here, sounds like a penguin, but it's not a penguin. We've got the southern giant petrel. So Macronectus giganteus. They're also known as the Antarctic giant petrel, or just the stink pot, or the stinker. So they've got lots of funny names for them. So these guys are a large seabird found in the southern oceans, and their distribution overlaps broadly with the similar northern giant petrel, though overall it is centered further south, and adults of two species can be distinguished by color of their bill, with greenish in the southern and reddish in the northern. So you guys have got a bit of a greenish tint as well to their bill tip. The southern giant petrel was formally described in 1789 by Johann Friedrich Gell, who's a German naturalist. He placed it with other petrels in the genus Proterelia, and then it split into its own thing, Macronectus, which basically means great swimmer, and giganteus just means gigantic. It is a monotypic, so there's not many subspecies known, it's just the one there. So in terms of description, they measure between 86 to 99 centimeters, or about 34 to 39 inches in length, and a wingspan of about 185 to 205 centimeters, or 6'1" to 6'9" in inches. Both this and the northern giant petrel vary considerably in size, with southern colonies being larger than northern colonies, so that seems to be Bergman rule. And the males do tend to be larger, and these guys do tend to be on average larger than northern giant petrels. But the males also tend to be larger, weighing between 2.3 to 5.6 kilograms, between 5 to 12 pounds, with males being larger than females. With the largest individuals coming from Macquarie Island, with 20 males averaging about 5.14 kilograms, and then 21 females averaging 4.2 kilograms. So they seem to be around that range. There's some populations, some variety, but they're about the same size there. Between, like 2 to 5 kilograms. And they have a very large yellow bill with a green tip and greyish-brown legs. Another difference as well, we'll have a look at a different variety there. So you can see there's one here, adult. They have two different colour morphs, the dark, which resembles the northern giant petrel, and a distinct light morph. On the dark morph, the upper breast, head, and neck are light. That, the plumage is malted brown. You can kind of see that here. The leading edge of its wings is lighter, and the base is in the primaries, and the lighter morph is very distinct with only slight black specks and otherwise a white look. And you can see the juveniles, the dark morph starts more sooty brown, and then it gets more pale as it ages. But both giant petrels have strong legs and can move quite good on land, and in flight the species has somewhat hunchbacked appearance. In like all members of the petrel family, they have features that set them apart. So that you can see these nasal patches called nasocorns that attach to the upper beak, and the nose holes of petrels are on the top of the bill. You can see that there. The bill of all Procellariiformes is also unique as they split into 7 to 9 horny plates. They also produce a stomach oil made of wax esters and triglycerides that is stored in the proventriculus. And this can be sprayed out of their mouths as defense against predators and used as an energy-rich food source for chicks as the adults follow during long flights. Also, the nasal, above the nasal process, there is a salt gland that helps remove salt from their blood. This salt, probably sodium chloride, is in their marine vertebrate food and a large amount of ocean water that they imbibe, or just eat passively. They also excrete concentrated salt solution through their nostrils. So in terms of their habitat, these guys are quite large and they range from Antarctica to the subtropics of Chile, Africa and Australia. So very, very wide range. A lot of these islands like the Florida Strait, Falkland Islands, Shetland Islands, South Shetlands, Macquarie Island, Prince Edward's and Corset's Islands. There's also Kalugans and pretty much those kind of ones in Antarctica. And there are some locations on continental Antarctica that they will breed on. In terms of breeding, they reach sexual maturity. We'll have a look at the babies. We'll get a good chance to. They reach sexual maturity at about 6 to 7 years old. However, their appearance age, the average age of breeding is about 10. Their breeding season is also mid-October, and they make a nest out of moss, grasses, and stones with a depression in the center, and is located on bare or grassy ground. They form widely dispersed colonies through July to August to September, with the exception of the Falkland Islands, where they have much larger colonies. One immaculate one egg is laid between 103 by 70 centimeters, or about 4.1 inches by 2.8 inches. It is incubated for about 55 to 66 days, and is always guarded by at least one parent. When the white chick is born, it is brooded for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then it fledges about 104 to 132 days. And these chicks are vulnerable to introduced predators such as small rodents. And these chicks are generally not recognized as threats by a member of the colony, and they can kill many chicks. So that's a big reason why they want to nail all those little rats and stuff on predator on small islands in Antarctica. So hopefully they get onto that. There is done a few of that, especially in New Zealand. In terms of feeding, though, these guys will feed on krill, fish, squid, offal, and waste from vessels in coastal or pelagic waters, where they often are found following fishing boats and cruise ships. But unlike most other pelicans, not pelicans, Procellariiformes, so petrels, these guys will eat carrion, and the southern giant petrel is known as actually an extremely aggressive predator that will kill other seabirds, and they've been seen preying on adult gannets, which by holding them underwater and drowning them, and they've also been observed drowning yellow-nosed and black-browed albatrosses. And the males exclude females from the carcasses they are feeding on. So they are quite brutal predators, and they'll often scare predators away from prey. And so they are quite nasty predators. And in the global population, they are considered least concern, with the overall population trend showing there was about 38,000 pairs in the 1980s, and then dropped to about 31,000 in the late 1990s, and then it's kind of been going up since. So there has been some good conservation efforts into protecting them, with some, declines, but, some areas going up and down. Accidental deaths from longline fishing, as well as trawl fishing near the Falkland Islands, is considered a major threat to these species. Between 2,000 to 4,000 southern petrels were killed between 1997 and 1998 due to illegal longline fishing. And however, with the decline of southern elephant seals, they do feed on carrion. So with less elephant seals to scavenge on, there's been a decline as well. And to assist their continued survival, though, many of the islands that they breed on are national preserves, and they will do censuses on them, and they can monitor breeding sites and help like that. So that's ways that they help the southern giant petrel. But yeah, another great cakes mod, always a winner. So I think that's about it for today. So yeah, that's really, really cool, interesting amount of species. A bit of a shorter one, but I like talking about some of these variety of species. But yeah, we're going to thank Tosco DS, did a really good job. Kanu, Sky Polaris, and Great Case Mods. You guys have all done an awesome job with these mods. So yeah, really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you guys like and subscribe, always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.